Hello, it's Mr. Cooper here, and I'm going to be talking to you today about the primary end of term reports. These reports have changed slightly from last year based upon parent feedback and the information that you want to know about your child's learning. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking through what the reports look like and allowing you to understand better what the reports tell you about your child's learning so far this term. Before I show you the reports, I just want to go quickly recap on what the Mastery Curriculum is. The Mastery Curriculum is based upon the idea of a child not just learning a skill in order to pass a test and to answer a question. It's much more about a child learning a skill to use and apply it in real life context. In the same way that we as adults, we don't just learn how to drive a car in order to pass a driving test, we learn how to drive a car in order to use the car in a variety of ways. As a safe driver, for enjoyment, and also to get us from A to B. So therefore, it's much more about using the skills of how to drive a car in a variety of different ways. In the same way, we want our children to use their skills in a variety of ways so that they come out as confident learners. The teachers over this term have graded your children on each skill that they've taught so far this year. The grading system uses this type of language: entering, developing, securing, and mastering. The idea of this is to assess the child's depth of knowledge and understanding of that skill. So for example, if a child is learning how to use full stops, part of learning is that they will enter that skill by beginning to use full stops. They will then develop that skill by use full stops more, but not always accurately. They will then secure that skill by always using full stops accurately. And then they will master that skill with the idea that they use the skill in a variety of different ways. And so therefore they have mastered that skill. So, for example, if a child is learning how to use questions, a child who is entering or developing that skill will probably know what a question is, and they might understand when to use a question, but they might not actually use it accurately within their writing. A child who is securing that questioning skill can actually use the question in their writing, and they may be able to explain the impact of a question has on a piece of writing. A child who is then mastering that skill takes that one step further in the fact that they might be able to evaluate the impact of questions in their writing, and they may be able to modify a piece of writing by adding in questions in order to enhance it further. So it's not just about being able to use a question or in their writing successfully, but in order to master a skill, it's being able to justify and explain why questions are important. We don't want a child just using a question mark just because an adult has asked them to. It's really important they know why they're using a question and also what impact that has on the reader. And this applies to their skills across the curriculum, whether it be in maths, whether it be in writing, reading, history, geography, science, art, PE. And so each teacher is assessing the children on the mastery depth of learning for each curriculum objective. And so here is an example of an end of autumn term report. Your child's details will be listed at the top in this area here, and then underneath are all the curriculum objectives that will be taught over this year. The objectives are then colour-coded into how your child is performing against them. At the moment, it is expected that most children will just be developing and entering the objectives, and they will secure them later in the year. So as you can see, this child is developing in 4 different reading objectives. 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are entering in 4 different objectives. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Underneath, the grey objectives are objectives that a child has not been taught and assessed against yet. They will be taught that later this year. And this is stated here where it says learning objectives that Ben Cooper will be learning later this year. And so the report is set out in a friendly way so that you can identify what your child is learning currently, what they need to do to improve, and also what they will be learning later in the year. Your teacher will share this report with you so that you have an understanding of what your child has learned so far and what they can do to improve. As we move through the report, I'll flick to the next page. Here you can see this is the writing report. Now sometimes they cross over 2 pages because there are lots of objectives. But again, the objectives that the child is developing in are here. The objectives that the child is entering in are here. And the grey objectives again state what the child will be learning later this year. As I flick down again, we then move to mathematics. Now here we can see that this child has already secured 2 objectives, which is absolutely brilliant. Underneath, they are developing a number of objectives, entering in a few, and again there are lots of objectives that the child has not been taught yet and will be taught in term 2 or term 3. As we scroll into science, again there are now purple objectives. In science you will find that children start to secure and master objectives much more quicker because of the way the curriculum is taught in blocks. So this child is mastering in 2 curriculum objectives. They're securing in 3 and entering in 2 objectives. So again, you can see what your child is very good at, what they've learned so far, and what they need to do to improve. The final piece of information that will be shared with you at Parents' Evening is your child's CAT4 summary report. The CAT4 test is a diagnostic test that tells the teacher how their children learn best. Here I have an example report. The idea that for each part of the test, the child should score around about 100. If they score above, then that means they're very good at that area, and if they score below, it means that that's an area that child needs to work on. The key information is then listed underneath. So here we can see that Ben Cooper from year 5 scored 102 in their verbal, so they're where we would want them to be. For their quantitative score, they scored 112, which is above average, fantastic. For this child's non-verbal score, it's lower than average, and so this would be an area where the child needs to improve. And their spatial was 103. Overall, it gives them a mean average score of 98. So overall, this child is working where we would expect them to. At WEC, we think it's very important that parents understand this as well, so that you know how to support your child at home. So for example, it says here, this profile is evenly balanced, which means that they may learn in a number of different ways. Your child is likely to learn by reading, writing notes, essays, discussing topics, as well as using more hands-on approach across the subject. So your teacher and you as a parent can design activities that best suit your child's learning. Thank you very much for listening to this video. I hope it's been helpful and informative. If you have any more questions, then please do not hesitate to come and see either your class teacher, myself, Miss Finn, Miss Isaacs, or another member of the leadership team. Thank you.